Welcome to the King's Court.
Yes.
We're going to give some people some time to get in. This is our launch for our live, our first YouTube live.
First YouTube live.
And so please share. The topic is hot. Come on in. Share this broadcast.
Yes,
we are going to be talking about love after dysfunction and abuse. We have both been through.
We've been through a lot of things. And, in many days, as men and women going through what we go through in life, we try to act like, this stuff doesn't happen. Dysfunction is not there. Mm-hmm. We're not dysfunctional. We didn't really go through anything. I mean, unless we get in church and start to want to talk about, I have a testimony. Then you start hearing about all the dysfunctional stuff.
Yes.
But the truth be told is we really went through some dysfunctional stuff, and to God be the glory, we made it out.
So tell you a little bit about our backstory. I am April Nadine King. I'm sure you guys know that. And this is my husband, Jeremy King.
How you doing?
And we both have had over 27 years together combined of failed dysfunctional and abusive marriages.
Yeah.
I had 2 prior to this marriage. That is a godsend. My husband had 1, and he's going to talk about his perspective of abuse that men face in relationships, dysfunction and abuse, as well as I'll be sharing some things about what I faced and how that carries over. And in today's discussion, we were going to share about, how it is when you lose your femininity or masculinity, and how dysfunction and toxic relationships can really make you, it could bring you in a difficult place. So we definitely hope you stay with us, ride this journey with us. Hi, cousin. Terry says, hi, beautiful family. Hi, we just want to give a warm welcome to everyone that's on.
Come on. Share.
Brother, share this video. I promise you there is going to be a lot that we share in this time frame. So I guess we'll just jump right in.
And a lot of times in my previous situation, I don't put names out there, and I don't, because I do understand that this is my children's mother. This is, a relationship that I went through that was, hello, Miss Jessie. How you doing?
Hello, Miss Jessie. Hello.
So I recognize that, I was having dysfunctional, actions. How can I say? I was, responding in a negative fashion, even to April, at times where my actions were not welcoming.
Mm.
They weren't welcoming. And the reason why they weren't welcoming, because it came from a very hurtful and place where I didn't know, what happened to me that caused me to become this way. And, it's funny because me and April, we've been writing a book together, and
it's called Love After.
It's called Love After,
Dysfunction and Abuse.
Yes. And the reason why we wrote this was to come from a man and a female's perspective and point of view. And it's very, sometimes as a man, you go through something and you don't want to tell the world that you went through it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to tell people about it. You want to run away from it, and you want to hide as much as possible because, one, your masculinity is in question.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told by men during the time that I was going through that horrible situation, you didn't have balls. You didn't have balls because you allowed this woman to do this to you. And let's be transparent. When you hear another man come to you and question your manhood because you thinking that you trying to love your wife the best way that you possibly can, even though all the things that she's doing and she's hurting you. She's hurting you, but she's coming from a hurt place. So you're thinking that you're doing everything possible, everything that you possibly can to to help her get through this situation. I'm talking about praying. I'm talking about fasting. I'm talking about counseling. I'm talking about all these different things that's happening that you're doing to get through this situation, and not realizing that during that period of time, you're losing a big portion of yourself.
And so I want to tag on to that as far as from what I went through. And this is, like he said, when we talk about toxic people, toxic relationships, dysfunction, abuse, and things that we as a people, or as, period, we think are normals, normal things, normal ways to react. We think it's normal for love to hurt. We think it's normal to be in a relationship where we are fighting or conflict is constant, because there's this idea that we fight for love, yes, right? Yes. There's this idea that if you're not fighting for your love, it's not worth it.
Yes.
And we buy into this notion and this idea that, yes, love hurts, when in actuality, it's not supposed to hurt.
No.
It's not supposed to hurt. It's supposed to heal. And so when I think about my situation, and like he said, this is no bearing on our prior relationships, our prior marriages, and those individuals. We pray all the time that they are healed and that they are complete and they are whole. But this is about us reflecting on how yes, we ended up in dysfunctional and abusive yes, marriages prior to being married to each other. And so it took a lot of self-reflection, because sometimes we can blame a person or blame the other person for the dysfunction and abuse, and they might be the perpetrator. In my situation, I wasn't the physical one. I wasn't the one that was instigating situations all the time. I started to respond in that way, but initially I wasn't that one. So it would have been easy to blame my ex-husbands or my exes for the dysfunction and abuse, like they're the ones. But I had to reflect on what was missing inside of me, that I accepted such behavior, that I accepted the circumstances. And so if you're just joining us, we're talking about love after dysfunction and abuse, how it takes away your masculinity, your femininity. My husband and I have both failed marriages prior to one another, and both of those marriages, he never knew me, I didn't know him, but we both suffered from toxic relationships, toxic and abusive situations and dysfunction, where there was constant cursing in the house. For me, it was constant cursing. I was being called names. I would throw back names. There was yelling. There was all this stuff that was happening, and I could not get a clear path of why. I did not understand why. And until I got away from the situation and reflected inwardly, I found out the truth, and one truth that I found out in this marriage is love is not supposed to hurt. Mm. It's supposed to heal.
Yes.
We're not supposed to fight each other. We're supposed to fight against the world, but not each other.
Exactly.
I shouldn't be called a bee or a hoe or a slut or any of those things by my husband who loves me. I shouldn't be calling my husband nigga this, and we're being raw and real in these conversations. We got to be transparent. I shouldn't be talking to him any kind of way. And see, dysfunction and abuse will make you do those types of things.
Yes, it will.
They'll make you change your speech, where you're talking to who is supposed to be the king of your heart and the queen of his heart. They'll make you talk in a certain way to one another. And if I can help anybody out, it's not supposed to be that way. There is nothing that is, there's nothing that grows in fields like that. And so when we think about love from that perspective and how love should be, it shouldn't hurt. I remember listening to a song by one of my favorite artists that, back in the day. And it's this song that she sung. I'm not going to say her name, but, sings this song about love hurts. And it ain't real if it don't hurt. We've bought into that notion, right? I'm fighting for my man.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for my relationship. You know what I'm saying? I'm fighting for this because it's supposed to hurt. And at the end, I'm going to have a story to tell. I'm going to have a testimony to tell. Mm-hmm. Man, all that's hogwash, And then we, on the other end of the spectrum, when somebody tells us there's a man like this one who loves you and takes care of you and and washes your feet, runs your bath water, we think that's a fairy tale. And we say those men are too nice. We don't want them. Nah, that's not real. But the reality is, it is real. If we're doing it according to God's standards, it is very much real.
And and so one thing I want to read out of the book that we're writing Of course, I want y'all to understand something. These are, little clips here and there. If you want it, August 1st is going to be coming out.
August 1st is the release date of Love After Dysfunction and Abuse.
Yeah, we're what I'm saying? We're just
it's a good book, too.
We're just giving some little clips here and there just to make you think. I just want to empower you to think and see where dysfunction comes from, So right now, what I'm saying? You're right, Tanya Sykes. No fighting or competition. Y'all working together. That's 100% right. But in my book, it says, and I just want to read this right here. Though we may have agreements with our spouses, dysfunction has a way of creeping in when someone refuses to demonstrate love from a 100 point of view.
That's good.
You listen to me.
100.
There's no way you're going to cut my love by 50%. Right. If I love somebody, I'm going to love them 100%. And I'm going to give it all I got. See, that's the difference between, people who are loving from a not unperfect place. See, that's the thing that we have to realize is when in imperfection, you'll love from that imperfect place, that dysfunctional place. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like I can't give you all I got. I can't love you with all I got. And that's because that's the way that you feel about yourself. I haven't gotten all the love that I personally need. So I can't personally give April 50% of love because it has to come from an agape place. Mm-hmm. And that place it renders for me to give 100% of my love. I can't give you 1%, 2%, 3%. This ain't milk, y'all. This ain't milk. This is love. So when I come from that loving place, I gotta do all I can to make sure that she is loved the way that she's needed to be loved. I can't do this thing from a conditional place.
And so that 50-50 thing, and like Tanya says here, my husband says that all the time. It is 100, not 50-50. But that 50-50 thing is a dysfunctional mindset because we fear giving ourselves away to somebody because we have been through such horrible situations. I know for me, after being married where I was married and 2 times in a row dealing with what I dealt with, I had a fear and still have that fear sometimes of giving myself completely. And my husband and I, we talk about those things, yes. The healing of each other, going through the process that we have to reflect, and understand that, if I give myself completely, he's not going to hurt me. And if he gives himself completely, I'm not going to hurt him. But because I've been through dysfunction, it's like it's been carved in my mind, right? Sometimes when we've been through abusive, the trauma, it leaves this groove in our minds, and then we start to respond that way. It gets buried down in our subconscious where we start to respond in that way to everybody. So we build up these walls, right? That's just a natural thing to protect yourself. I know I did. Like, no man is going to hurt me. He's not going to call me no more names. He's not going to put his hands on me. He's not going to do this, this, and this. And so I built up these walls because I started to say that on a constant basis, and they became walls. Like, that's not going to happen to me. And so it closed me in to where I am doing, at times where I have to check myself. Give yourself over completely.
And, so let's give an example, right? So let me give y'all an example real quick, right? It was one time I remember where me and April was sitting there talking, and I recall saying the word lazy. I remember saying the word lazy, and April came, boy, she said, I ain't lazy. and let's be transparent. Let's be very transparent. And I'm gonna be very open right now. That was not a good choice of words to use at that moment. And so at that moment where I said that, April, boy, she came out like a lion, boy. She was like, no, you not gonna call me late. And I said, oh, goodness gracious. But I recognized that was something that was there that caused her to feel like, no, don't call me that. Don't say that to
right.
me. Don't call me no name. You know, and in that, I learned at that moment that name calling was something that she, you know, that she was uncomfortable with. And of course, there shouldn't be no name calling in a relationship anyway.
Right.
However, there's times where in your flesh, you get to that place and you do things, but guess what? It comes from a dysfunctional place.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Understand that a lot of these things that we do comes from a dysfunctional place. It's not from a whole place.
Exactly.
And I want y'all to, let me explain that. A whole place is that place where it's perfected. Come on. A place where you're comfortable with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I love me. I love you.
Yeah.
We went through some stuff, but amen, we gonna get through it. We gonna do what we got to do. We're not, you know, but when you come from that hurt and dysfunctional place, it makes you not see yourself for who you truly are.
Right.
It helps you, it makes you, it doesn't help you, it limits you from seeing your spouse, your loved ones at the perfected love place where they are. So it's very, very much so. It's necessary for you to understand that dysfunction destroys and it limits who you are and how you see other people.
So there is something that I was thinking about recently as far as when we are responding and how we sound as women, you know, and I was sharing, and I think when we have come from so much dysfunction, sometimes we can lose that soft answer, you know, and the soft answer that turns away wrath. And when I was telling my husband the other day, I was driving and I was thinking about how moments where I have responded harshly to my husband, you know, or I responded in a way that wasn't soft or feminine, or, you know, it wasn't in a way that would turn away wrath. It would probably add more fuel to the fire. And I had to reflect because I said, where, you know, I started to think, you know, and when we've gone through traumatic situations, yes, it's important for us to reflect why we're doing what we're doing. You know, why do we respond? And especially when you've gone through an abusive or dysfunctional relationship, you got to reflect why you may have responded in the way that you have. And where is this coming from? Yes. So I was, and nothing happened. So don't think we were in an argument or anything. I was on my way to go get my hair done. And those are moments. It doesn't have to be anything that makes you think, but I just started reflecting. I said, why is it that when my husband says this, I lash out in this way? Or when my husband does this, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I started thinking, and the Holy Spirit led me to understand that it was because of what I've been through, some buried things. Sometimes things can be so buried that if we're not reflecting, they kind of stay buried. But that thing got kind of uncovered, that it was a response mechanism to protect myself. And so I lashed out in order to protect myself because, like I said, I was not going to be hurt. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to call me names or anything like that. And the response, the action that he did or whatever he's done doesn't really warrant that response. But why am I responding that way? And so follow me here. I started thinking about how women and then how we are in the world, and how, you know, you got female rappers, you got all these individuals that are talking a certain way to, you know, men. They sound like men, right? They're like, nah, you know, Negro this, you know, they got all this harshness about them. And I'm thinking, wow, women, we're taking on that persona. We're no longer feminine or soft or looking at things differently. And so those particular moments that I thought about, I said, wow, this is because of all of the things that I've buried, that I'm now responding in a harsh way. And I sound like a man, I act like a man, you know, and I'm all doing like this. And you think about, that's what, you know, when we're looking at the people that are icons, or what do you call them, babe? Like not rappers, but like, you know, people that are social.
It could be anybody that basically has, you know, influence.
Yeah, you know, and women are, you know, yeah, Negro, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, where's all that coming from? And it's a dysfunctional place. So I had to look at myself to say, I don't need to respond that way. I'm more feminine. I need to be more willing to be soft with my answer, turn away wrath, and not allow that to affect how I respond or look at situations.
Okay, so right now, we had
a question
from Prophet Mario Jr. How did you deal with emotional? I believe this is a question for me. He said, he said vice versa. So, okay, it's for both of us. How did you deal with emotional battles after you divorced and met your new queen, and vice versa?
You got that one? You want me to go?
You were already talking, so go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
So, because I always talk to him about this, I said, how will we tell people who have been through the issues in relationships or emotional issues or emotional abuse? What will we say to them? And I think that it's important to understand that your wholeness comes from the fact that you no longer desire to be dysfunctional or abusive or toxic or hurt someone, right? So sometimes we think that everything about us is going to be completely healed per se. And there is a healing that takes place, but that doesn't mean that there's not moments that you remember those emotional issues or you don't remember those battles, like scars kind of, it's not moments where I can't sit here and lie and say that when we're dealing with each other, that it's all, roses and peaches and right. But I understand that now I've come to a place, I got whole in the manner that I said, I don't want to be in that situation anymore. I don't want to be dysfunctional. I want to love somebody. Yes. I want to be with somebody and be whole. And I'm willing to do that. But I think that is the place that I got to, if that answers your question.
But you want to know something? I want to say this to you, brother. Is this? It's okay to cry.
Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with emotional battles after you divorced? Listen to me. I had to cry. I had to crawl up in that corner. As a man, I had to crawl up in that corner. I had to forgive. I had to forgive myself. I had to begin to understand how I was affected in that situation. I had to realize how I forgot how to be who I needed to be for myself. I had to begin to build myself and strengthen myself, encourage myself. Because let me tell you something, when you in your deepest, darkest hole, a lot of people not trying to encourage you. A lot of people not trying to bring you up out of that hole and tell you everything's going to be all right. So as a man, my masculinity was questioned. As a man, my integrity, my authority, it was questioned. It was, what I'm saying? A lot of people questioned who I was. Well, I was even asked by somebody close to me, and they said, did God tell you to marry that girl? It was a question of who I was, what authority I had. They questioned me, my inward man. My spiritual man was questioned. So so a lot of times you got to revisit those places. You got to revisit who you are. You got to and really get that in your spirit. Understand that from that emotional place of who you are, so that guess what? So now once you deal with the emotional, now you can put that on back burner in 2 years, 3 years from now, you're not crying about the same thing over and over again.
That's right. That's right.
And so that's the reason why you got to deal with it after you leave. You got to get away, and I want you to understand that. Get away from the dysfunction.
And you've got to deal with yourself. Sometimes we can't focus on the other person.
Yes.
As much as we need to focus on ourselves. But Cousin Terry says, I believe both people must be open-minded and considerate in order to even communicate on this level. We're usually pointing fingers or playing the blame game. It doesn't work. And that is completely true.
100% true.
When I left the situation, I no longer, there were times where in both marriages that I left, came back, left, came back, left, came back. And in those moments, I never really reflected on myself. When I left, it was, what the other person did, and how they affected me and what, they're bad and, they need to apologize. But when I finally left and decided to make a decision, it became a reflection that I need to look inward. Why am I going around this mountain? Why is this situation to me so comfortable? You know, why am I going back to the abuse? Why am I going back to the toxicity, right?
Toxicity.
Why am I going back?
Tongue twister.
Why am I going back to it? You know? And so I think that's a part of the process. When you do any situation that's like that, if you leave, you can't go back immediately. You've got to take time to reflect on yourself, because it becomes a deadly cycle. I mean, yes. I had experience in almost 12 years in both marriages total of it just being this deadly cycle of just constant, and no one willing, if they're not willing to change, and especially if it's been abuse, emotional abuse, like, you know, we should have gave that disclaimer. If you're going through any of those types of situations, you know, you got to seek professional help, you know, yes. and things like that. So, you know, I want to make sure we put that out there. You know, my husband's a licensed counselor. I'm not a licensed counselor, but he is. And he's, you know, getting his master's in behavioral psychology. But, you know, and I'm not. So there's some things he can speak to psychologically that may be going on. But it's important that you get help and seek help if you're going through something like that.
And I want to say this, you know, because the question here from also Prophet Mario Jr. was, what supportive methods did the two of you use to help the healing? And I want you to realize, you know, like for me, you know, and we're trying to keep this as open as possible, because I recognize that there's people who might not be Christians, you know what I'm saying, that may watch your video and stuff like that. But for me, I'm talking about for me in my house, you know, I sought the Lord. Mm-hmm. I sought the Lord. I took time for prayer. You know, I really took that time to look inwardly, because inwardly dysfunction has a way of trying to point the finger. Like Cousin Terry just said, she it has a habit of trying to point the finger at other people. But I want to read this piece right here from the book. It says, they believe, and this is dysfunctional people, they believe everything is wrong with everyone else. Instead of looking inwardly, dysfunctional people will project their hurt, pain, and negativity to influence others. I want you to realize something. I was also dysfunctional. Let's be honest, okay? I also had some dysfunctionality inside of myself. Mm-hmm. So when I was going through that situation with my previous marriage, it wasn't that I, you know, hated her. It was that I recognized that the cheating, the lying, and the things that happened to me made me go to a place that I didn't belong. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when you're in a place where you don't belong, you find yourself going, it's like you're eating out of a tray that don't belong to you. You're eating food that don't belong to you. It's like, this isn't what I'm used to eating. I'm not used to eating this right here. This is like pig slop to me. This is not, let's be real. From biblical standpoints, we call that the prodigal son, right? I'm not where I'm supposed to be at. I'm not with who I'm supposed to be with. So I need to go back to, you know, that place where, you know, I belong. And getting there makes you have to deal with something that you were not ready to deal with. Mm-hmm. And the prodigal son said, you know what, look, they eat better than this. Mm-hmm. They eat better than this at my father's house. Listen, man, even the servants eat better than this. Like, you know what I'm saying? I got home. So times it's where we venture off into a place where we don't belong. And that dysfunctionality literally takes you to that place where you don't belong. And it's like, man, listen, I got to get up out of here. I got to get back where I know happiness is. Yeah. But on your way there, you're going to have to deal with some of this stuff that caused you to be in the situation that you're in. Deal with you. Because when you start dealing with you, this ain't about the other person.
That's right.
When you start dealing with you, you're going to start finding out that you got some dysfunctional ways in you. You had something that you're dealing with, and so now let's get that thing up out of us. Go ahead.
So there's a question here. How often do you get out and date without the fear of the past resurfacing?
You said, how often did I?
Do you get out and date?
Well,
we're married, but
hold on. Are you talking about dating in like?
Clarify that.
Like when we were after the divorce, how many times did I get out and date?
Yeah. So we'll wait to get
some clarity
on
on that question. But I'm gonna be real with you. If I understand the question correctly, I'm gonna say, Mario, I didn't really date much. For me, this is me personally. This is the reason why. I didn't date much because I realized this was a different type of game out here now. I was married for literally almost 15, 16 years. So, I want you to realize something here. When I got out here, got out of the game a long time ago, I was like 21. So getting out of the game and getting back in it, y'all start realizing that females are a lot different. They was a little bit different. So I dated maybe 1-2 people, but it was a while after, I got the divorce. So
can we talk a little bit about
what can we talk about, baby? What can we talk about? I see you about to go there. What's up?
Yeah. So, can we talk a little bit about how you felt like your masculinity or some of the stuff that you went through as far as abuse in your previous, how that may have challenged your masculinity? Do you want to share some of that? I know it's a little deep, but
yeah. I recall one situation, and I remember where I was in the house and I had just bought some flowers for her, and she came out the room because she was angry with me about something and took a padlock and threw it at my head. Mm. And when she threw it at my head, it missed me and it hit the vase that I just had bought flowers for her for. And at that time where it happened and we had a family member of hers in the household. And as a man, I felt like, who you throwing something at? But right. At the same time, it was like, I can't respond in this way because my mom didn't tell me to teach me to put my hands on a female. She didn't teach me to hurt anybody. She didn't teach me to do that. That wasn't the way that she brought me up. She didn't bring me up telling me to hit women and fight women and throw stuff at women and all the stuff like that. So
that can make you feel.
So it made me feel like I was a target and I couldn't fight back.
Wow.
And I hope that helps a lot of us men understand something, that when you're not raised a certain way, a lot of times when you're put in a situation where you're subject to something of that magnitude, you're like, wow. I mean, I wasn't brought up this way. So you recognize the dysfunction, but you have to begin to start understanding once you see the dysfunction, get out of there. And I didn't. Let's be real. I stayed in the situation because I thought prayer was going to help her get out of the situation. I thought that me doing something different was going, change her. Because see, and it was something that I remember I was talking to a minister a long time ago. And when me and him was talking, I asked him this question. He didn't have an answer for me. I asked him, I said, a lot of time the church says, hold on, but they don't never talk about letting go.
Wow.
I said, they don't never talk about letting go, telling us when it's time to let go of a situation that's not healthy. It's not healthy for you.
That's so can we stay just for a second? Because I'm sure that's a question for a lot of people who are in abusive, toxic relationships. And, you may have people that are ministers that are abusing their wives. You can have, or the vice versa, vice versa.
Vice versa.
Vice.
Say vice
versa.
There you go.
But you can have, so in the church, when we think about abuse and all of these different things that we're talking about, like he said, when does the church ever say, let go? We'll sit there and talk about praying somebody through, and holding on to the relationship. All the while you're being abused, you're being mistreated, you're being, emotionally abused, physically abused, all of these different things that people face. And it's like, what does that look like when it's like time to just let go? Because prayer is a good thing. And I'm not saying that God can't change people, but while he's working on that person, when should you walk away? If he's working on that person, that's God's child. We're not God. We're not the Holy Spirit or anything like that. So you're right. So when you talk to that minister, what was the answer?
Like I said, there was none.
There was no answer.
And the reason why was because that minister also knew that a lot of the ministry and a lot of things that was being said was about holding on. A lot of preachers was preaching in that time period. Hold on, the God's unchanging hand. Hold on, and you holding on. I'm holding on, but they're not holding on.
Right.
They're not holding on.
And you're dying.
I'm holding on. and while I'm holding on, I'm getting knocked upside the head. And I'm holding on, but they're not holding on. And so it's so necessary for you to understand that there's consequences to you holding on to something that basically don't belong to you.
So dysfunction, abuse, toxic people don't belong to you. They're not, it's not our life. It's not our portion. And so that I'm kind of like taken back, because you're right. I think I held on for that premise. You hold on. I'm fighting for love. I'm doing what's necessary. I'm going to pray him through. I'm going to pray for his deliverance. I'm going to pray for his peace. God's going to change him. And all the while I was losing myself. All the while I was being called names. I was being abused, all these different things, dysfunction. And then I, in turn, became dysfunctional. Whenever he came at me, I came back at him. So I want to share this really quick about how dysfunction, when I made the point about dysfunction taking away your femininity or masculinity in your case, and how sometimes we can get the wrong advice from wrong people. And so in one of my prior situations, I went to someone to get advice about how to handle it. And I was asking because I said, every time he me, it just takes me out. I said, every time I feel like I'm just overly sensitive, because I would be crying, I'd be upset, and I would get called names and all this stuff. So I remember going through that, and I went to this person and said, what do I do? What do I do? And because this person was in dysfunction themselves, the advice that I got was, well, you need to know how to come back at him, right? Mm-hmm. You need to know how to come back. So you need to get something sharp to say. When he says this, you need to get back on board and like be able to snap back and say this. It wasn't the advice that was given was like, no, that's not good. That's not healthy. You need to leave, or you need to find, some serious help. It was, okay, let me tell you, girlfriend, how you make it through this situation. And so
she's telling you, this how you clap
back. Right. So this is the advice that I got. And seriously, this is a person that I trusted. And because they were dysfunctional, they're telling me when he clapped back at you and he calls you a name, he called you b-hole, whatever this is how you clap back. And see, it becomes this deadly cycle of just dysfunction because we're so used to it, right? Mm-hmm. We think that's the norm. Like in her mind, that was the norm. In her mind, that was the norm to say, clap back at him when he come at you. So when he come and say, April, you be blah, 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 then you say, such and such, you ... And the next thing you know, he coming harder, I'm coming harder. So it's this deadly cycle of toxic dysfunction, abuse, my children witnessing it, right? So all this stuff is going on. So I got this advice from this person. I did it. And I remember the first time I did it, I told him something, and I got to bleep some of it out. I told him something that made his socks fall off. And he was just like, how dare you say that to me? And then I remember the shift, because at that moment I shifted to become like my abuser in that situation. I shifted to become just like him. So then I had a mouth just like he had a mouth. But then it also started to change my prayer life, because what I started to pray was not the will of God. I started to pray, Lord, make me stronger. Make me tougher to face these situations, right? So because people teach us to pray about situations, nobody's telling you, let go, let God. Nobody's telling you this situation is not good for you, but you holding on because you're fighting for your love. And now I'm praying. I'm praying, well, Lord, make me stronger. Don't make me weak. Don't make me cry when he says this. Lord, give me something to say back. These were my prayers at the time. When I think about how dysfunctional my prayers were, and if God truly decided to answer my prayers, where I would be today. Do you understand? Like how dysfunction, it changes everything. It will shift your entire life. It will shift your mindset, how you approach situations in every aspect of your life. So my prayer life even became dysfunctional because I started to pray that way. I started to pray, Lord, make me tough. And that took, and Lord, maybe I'm too sensitive, you know, and that's not a healthy place to be.
And, you know, and it even got to a place where I'll share this and be honest about it. When I remember I had found out that my ex-wife had cheated. And it even got to a dysfunctional place to where I started beginning to start wanting to be like the one she cheated with. Mentally. What was it that caused you to cheat? What was it about that person that caused you to
So you digging for information.
So I'm digging for information.
To ask why. So you can be like that person. So she don't cheat.
So she don't cheat.
Instead of just leaving the situation.
Instead of just leaving the situation. And so
that's what dysfunction meant.
So listen to me, people. Listen to me. Dysfunction is a robber.
It will rob you.
It literally wants to rob you of your love, your life. It wants to take your freedom. And so I want you all to understand something. Leave dysfunction in the dust.
Okay, so we got to go back to that. But Terry, what you're saying is so profound, because when I went through that abuse that I went through, I promise y'all, one or two things happen when you are in an abusive situation or toxic situation. You either are going to get killed, right? Or maybe three things, but you either are going to get killed. No, leave it right there for a second.
So, no.
You're already going to get killed or severely damaged and lose your freaking mind.
Come on.
Or you're going to become like your abuser.
Yeah.
And so for me, the shift was I became just like them. Okay. Instead of it being something where I found my worth to walk away, I became just as they were. And so when I think about and I look back, that's why I said it's good to reflect when you've been in an abusive situation or you've been in those types of things, to reflect on what's going on inside of me. Because if I'm accepting either death, if I'm accepting either going crazy, or I'm accepting that I'm going to become just like this fool here, then something is wrong with me. And there were some things missing inside of me. So I promise you, it is nothing compared to you reevaluating and stepping away. You will not lose anything when you step away from an abusive situation or dysfunction. We are actually losing more by staying in it.
And I want you to realize something, right? When I stepped away, right? I stepped away and I thought about my kids. I was thinking about my kids. But you don't know the resilience of your children. You don't know the resilience of your children because your children is wondering, why are you staying in this situation when there's so much better out here for you? And you don't recognize that they recognize that you're being called. But it broke my heart one day. And April will tell you this. And I'm holding back the tears. My son came in here And he told me he remembered, and this is when he was at 4.5 years old. He remembered when his mom took a pill bottle and threw it at me. And how he remembers how she aggressively came at me. And you don't understand how when a child looks at you and it's like, I want you to be happy. I want you to be free.
Yeah.
I know this might be my mom. I know this might be my dad, but I want you to be happy. I want you to be free, because whatever this can't be freedom.
And this can't be freedom. It can't be freedom. Oh, my hair. And so, but I want to go back, because you were talking about, that's something that I'm first hearing, that you said you were asking about the cheaters. So when your ex-wife was cheating on you, and you would ask her about the guy, because you thought, if I could just be like that person, then she won't do this.
Yes.
And then you made the point to say that dysfunction and abuse will rob you. It'll rob you. So
it'll rob you.
So you actually did that.
Yes. At that time, and there's so many things that played a part in that pot.
Yeah.
And I want y'all to realize something, and you know what I'm saying, because this is in transparency. But I want to share this. This dysfunction will cause you to lose your dignity. It'll cause you to lose your sanity. Now, the Bible said that the Lord gives us love, peace, and hold on. It says it gives us a sound mind.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us a sound mind, and I didn't have that at that moment.
Wow.
I didn't have a sound mind. I didn't have a sound mind at that moment. I was trying to make it in a situation, and I didn't have anybody communicating and helping me to guide me through this situation. And at that moment, because everything that was going on, I wasn't hearing God. So even when I went to tell people or talk to somebody about it, it wasn't like I was very open either.
Right.
Because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed about the situation. I was embarrassed of what happened to me and what transpired. So when I asked those questions, it wasn't because I in a way, I was just so insecure. I was insecure about who I was. I was insecure about what I should become. I was insecure about, you know what I'm saying, the man that I needed to be. So therefore, it was like, hold on, man. She doing all this stuff to me. What do I do? So in that, I'm thinking, hold on, go ask her, what's different? Well, you know what I'm saying? How can I'm telling this, because I want you all to understand something here. You basically can literally look at somebody, and that dysfunctional person is a robber. They desire that drama. They desire that conflict. They desire to seeing you whimper and cry and beg. They desire that. So therefore, guess what? You because you're loving, you're caring, you'll jump through those hurdles thinking that you're doing the right thing.
Yep.
You're thinking that you're doing the right thing, but the truth be told is, listen to me, you're not doing the right thing. You're not doing the right thing begging that person. You're not doing the right thing going and washing their feet, thinking that, hey, I'm gonna wash the fungus off their feet, and they're gonna use them clean feet to run right on out of there and do what they're gonna do. Listen, you gotta understand when you're operating from a hurt place, you're not whole.
Yes.
When you operating from a hurt place, you're not whole. So there's no possible way.
So Erica Cooper is not watching from our live. Hey, sis. But she said she felt the person stole my pure, loving heart. And I understand, because there are times where I have to reflect that I felt like what was stolen from me was my free spirit, my free loving spirit, where I used to be very, free and open. Now it's like it's been, trampled on, where, I feel suffocated in certain situations. So I'm like, right. And I think that's a little, is it PTSD? I always get that wrong. PTSD. I always
post-traumatic stress
right,
disorder.
Sometimes. So yes, sis, I completely understand you. But it's so freeing to talk about this right now. And like he said, you feel embarrassed when you've gone through, when people would ask me what's going on, I would always say, oh, I'm fine. Because I'm displaying strength.
Because you thought it was
and
strength.
That's one thing, right? Because you thought it was strength. That's one thing too. That's where dysfunction and abuse will give you this false reality of strength. Yes. I'm being strong for my relationship. I'm bearing it all. Man, that's all a lie.
It's a lie.
And I literally bought into that lie for so long that I'm displaying strength, where it just wore me down. And so it's embarrassing when we think it's embarrassing to share. Like for my husband, when he shares his stories about what he went through, when I share my stories, it's actually so freeing, to say, look, this is what I went through. I don't wish any bad on that person.
Nope.
Don't wish any bad on but this is what happened to me. And this is how I have healed. And this is the pathway that my husband and I with Love After have taken, to find love, to heal each other, to tell each other it's okay. I understand, and so it's so freeing. And I think when somebody steals something from you, like dysfunction and abuse, when people steal your joy, your love, the best thing to do is share it. Now, you may not share it with everybody. You may find a safe place to share it, but I think the path and road to recovery is find somebody that you can trust and share. Talk about it, talk it out. Because let me tell you something, when I started to really heal and talk about what I went through, things that I buried, I don't know, there's a word for it in psychology, I'm sure, things that happened to me that I totally forgot about, that it started coming back. Like, oh my God, I did go through that. Oh, that did happen to me. Oh, I remember where I was without a car and I had to walk while my ex-husband had the car and drove everywhere. I'm married now and I'm walking with my children, pushing them in a stroller, taking the bus, but my husband has the car and refuses to let me use the car or refuses to let me drive in the car. I went through that. You know what I'm saying? I went through that. And when I reflect back, now I'm at a place where some things bring me to tears, some things don't. But that it helps me stay free, because I'm like, I'm not going back to that. I'm not going back to that dysfunction. I'm not going back to that abuse.
No, she's not.
At all.
No, she's not. You're right. She's not. Not at all. Not at all. You know what I'm saying? Because see, okay, so we got a question here. I believe it's like a 3-part here. What happened the first month after you married?
What happened?
The first month after we married, believe it or not, you know what I'm saying, the first month after I came from New Jersey to Georgia. And at first we had in our mind, because I was in New Jersey, she was in Georgia. And she desired for me to come, but I was thinking I was going to stay there for like 6 months to allow my son to finish school
and do some other stuff,
and try to, because making commuting to Georgia, and then next thing you know, and so I was trying to bank some money real quick, come down here where we balling, you know what I'm saying? They didn't happen like that. April was like, listen, that ain't happening for me. I need you here.
I need you
here.
So
I came here and I grit and I bore it. But I came here and we started our journey.
We started our journey, and it wasn't, because we're a blended family. So when you guys join this channel, we're going to be talking about,
Blended
our
issues,
dysfunction, abuse, all of that, and blended families. So, it started off like, we had to bring our children together and all those other things. So, yeah, but the first month was a process of just bringing it all together.
He asked another question. How how long did it take you to learn and apply the 5 love languages? Okay, I'll say like this. We basically, it took us. Well, we actually began
we're
when we
doing
started.
It now. Well,
Yeah.
when we started, but
we started. I mean, we didn't know each other's love languages right off the bat. I think we, our love languages was kind of, hidden a little bit, because when you first starting off, you need to get to know each other. But basically, we started off, and it was rocky because my love language is touch. I like touch. April's is service. You know what I'm saying?
And then words of affirmation.
So, I can tell her she's beautiful all day long and she loves it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? She loves when I go and do things like run the bath water for her.
Yeah, he does that stuff. So
yeah.
But we're on here for an hour and we don't want to keep you guys. We
don't want to keep you guys long.
Mario,
we love you. You know what I'm saying? We know if you can talk, you know what I'm saying? If you can send us a few text messages or whatever like that. But we're going to take some of your ideas and stuff like that. You guys can throw some ideas of some subjects and stuff like that you want us to talk about. We are more than happy to talk about these subjects. We just want to keep it real, raw. We want to do these things because we feel like right now in the situation that's going on in our society, it's really, really stemming towards keeping our focus off of what's necessary and what needs to happen. And right now, family domain is something that we need to get in order.
And so our conversations with dysfunction, abuse, toxic, even if you haven't been in a dysfunctional relationship or an abusive relationship, I think there's some things that you can learn because recently I reflected and I said, there's some things that as a person, you can respond the way that you act or respond on the surface. It can seem like it's healthy, but deep down it might be dysfunctional and you might not be aware of it. But we're talking about blended families. We're talking about love, all of those things, love after. Some people may be facing addiction, so love after addiction, love after whatever, love after blended families, how that all looks, and just sharing our journey together and our book. So before we log off, we hope that you guys share this broadcast and know that our book, which is called Love After Dysfunction and Abuse, will be released August 1st.
Yes.
And I tell you, it is a great read because the way that the book is set up, it has a him perspective and a her perspective, or a he, she, or how do you say that?
Yes.
How do you say that?
Him and her.
Him and her. A him and her perspective. On this topic. So we thank you guys for spending the hour with us, for commenting, for asking questions. You can always reach out to us at www.thekingzcourt, and that's Kingz with a Z.com. Please subscribe to our.
I don't know. Keep on getting real close. And I'm like, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Please subscribe to our channel. We Are the Kingz on YouTube. We Are the Kingz. So please subscribe today so you can always be updated when we go live. We will be going live next Monday, same time, same place.
And we coming with it. And we want you all to get involved. We want you to get involved and really take the time to just think on, where do you see dysfunction at? Where do you see it in your household? Where do you see it in your family? If you see it in others, and just speak on it and allow love to just flow.
Thank you. She said beautiful couple. Thank
you.
Cousin.
We love you all, and y'all have a blessed evening.
Goodbye. Oh, wait a minute. Don't leave just yet. Have a blessed evening.
Have a blessed evening.
Oh, we were still live. Bye.